Hey guys, Michael the DC Multiverse Collector here, really excited to be bringing you this review of the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Sportsmaster. Now you will see that this figure is a Platinum Chase figure. Now to my understanding, that's because this figure will be appearing in its assortment at an amount of 1, meaning that in any given box there'll only be one Sportsmaster. Now as I understand it, there are 2 other figures that are also Platinum Chasers in this assortment, being Reverse Flash and also the Manhunters. Now these 3 figures will be appearing in an amount of 1 per case. They could be really hard to find. I hope not. I don't know why they're being assorted this way or allocated this way, but that's just the way it is. And Sportsmaster is one of those 3. I got this guy from Hong Kong, imported him, really excited to be looking at him. It's not a character that I was familiar with, I've got to say. And in preparation for this review, I looked him up and I realized I had seen Sportsmaster in an episode of Young Justice where he's fighting Black Manta. It's a whole thing. I remember seeing it. I just hadn't clocked that that was the Sportsmaster. As it turns out, Sportsmaster is an obscure, relatively obscure villain, debuted in the 40s. He is a guy who is really, really good at sport and turns to a life of crime. So there you go. That's just superhero comics in the 40s. You gotta love it. Sportsmaster, here he is. Let's have a look on the side. You will see he's designated as Sportsmaster from DC Classic, which is usually what they call a figure that's not taken from any particular design or comic book run and is just intended to be an archetypal or classical version of the character. On the back, you will see some artwork of Sportsmaster. Looks relatively accurate to what we get in the box. Not sure where this art is from. If you know in the comments if this is actually from something, let me know. So anyway, without any further ado, I say we crack open Sportsmaster and see how cool this guy really is. So here is Sportsmaster out of the box with all his accessories, and it's a fairly basic but satisfying spread. Of course you get the DC Multiverse display stand, thin, basic, but nice to have. You also get the collector card, which has that same art on the front, and a data file on the back. Pause if you want to have a read about Lawrence the Crusher Croc. Very interesting, pretty random, but an enjoyable villain. Now, in terms of the meat of the accessories, we get 2. We get a baseball bat, and we get a huge, massive hockey stick, Casey Jones style. And both of these are pretty nice. Let's start with the baseball bat. You'll see it is relatively plain. It's got this beige coloured handle. It looks fine. It's good. It'll fit in the hand nicely. And in terms of the hockey stick, it is very, very long and there is just 0 paint on it, which is probably the most disappointing thing. A little bit of paint up here at the edges and at the tip would have been really, really nice. It's also incredibly thin. It's not super flimsy, like it actually holds its shape pretty well, but it's got a bit of bend to it, so it won't just snap. It's not going to be brittle. But yeah, a fairly unique accessory, not something we've had before in the line, so it's nice to get both. I do note that he doesn't come with any alternate hands. He comes with 1 gripping hand and 1 fist hand, so unfortunately he will only be able to hold one of these weapons at once, and you're just going to have to pick which one you want him to be holding. So that's a shame. I would have preferred that he came with some alternate hands, or maybe something that he can like attach his other weapon to his back with, so like a little holster or a sheath, so that you could always have him displayed with his full arsenal. So as you will see from the back, there is no such thing. So you're just going to have to pick a weapon and pose him with that, which is a little bit lame. Ideally, he'd be able to hold 2 or store 1 and hold 1. Now, as for the figure itself, I'm actually quite impressed because this is very obvious reuse of the Dark Detective figure. Now, if you recall, there was a Dark Detective figure which was Batman from Future's End, and he had Future State, and he had the long trench coat. Then they did a gold label release where they took the trench coat off, and it was effectively the Dark Detective figure with bare arms. Now, this is basically what that figure is, but there's been some revisions. So from the boots all the way up to the diaper piece is just the Dark Detective mold, recast in a different color plastic. This belt here, from my memory, is unique, so that's new, this belt, which is quite nice and it's quite fitting for the character. This chest piece is Dark Detective again, very, very nice, and I think it suits the character quite well. Sportsmaster is, in his modern incarnation, depicted wearing this sort of like hockey style armor, and while these little points there are a little bit Batman-esque, I think they just about get the job done. These upper arms are also from the Dark Detective, but the lower arms are unique to Sportsmaster, so that is nice to have the unique lower arms. And of course the head itself is completely brand new. So overall, when you look at this guy from top to bottom, this is just like the definition of sensible reuse. And for a character like Sportsmaster, I totally get why they'd take something existing and modify it. But I think they've done a reasonable job. The only thing I would say is maybe these shin guards here with the bat ears is maybe a touch too much. I wish they would sort of just remove those ears. To make it less Batman specific. Another thing you'll note about this is that the Dark Detective figure was designed to, I think, ride motorcycles. So he actually has a thigh cut. It's one of the rare DC bucks that has a thigh cut. So that's pretty interesting. But, as for the figure itself, it looks pretty good. There's not that much paint on here. There is, however, like a wash you'll see applied to the boots and the shin guards. Can you see that? There's like a metallic wash there, and it looks really, really nice. Not much on the knees. The legs are all just bare plastic, but then you get up to the chest plate and there's more of that really nice silver wash, which just gives a bit of weathering, gives this a little bit of texture and character. I like that. Otherwise, on the back, you're not seeing much paint at all. With the head, there is more of that wash applied to the mask, which looks really good, and there is nice depth to this mask. So you can see that the eyes are inset deep in the mask, really gives it some eerie character. I like that a lot. The paintwork is good, and the hair itself, you'll see his hair is painted a very, very golden yellow, highly unnatural, but the sculpt is nice, and there is a little bit of a wash in it to give some definition to the sculpt. So overall, it's a really nice head, accurate to the character, and overall, I think this guy looks good. Like, he's not going to blow you away. Ultimately, it's just like a Casey Jones guy, in his padded armor. But he looks alright, and if you kind of gear him up with his accessories, you see there's quite like a dynamic looking figure for display. Obviously you'd have to pose him well, but yeah, I kind of like him. Sportsmaster. Did not anticipate enjoying this figure as much as I did. In terms of articulation, it's the Dark Detective all over again. It actually moves quite well. Wow. Okay, I'm going to try and fix that. Bear with me. We are back in action. I reattached his leg, no problem. But there is some issue here with the belt inhibiting his forward kick. So I pushed that really hard, and that belt there forced the whole leg to pop off. So just bear that in mind. That is a bit inhibited. He does have double jointed knees, so that's nice. He's got the swivel, the rotation. You've seen it all before. T-pose, swivel, double jointed at the elbow. Ab crunch, pretty reasonable. And back. He can rotate, even though the belt's there, it doesn't inhibit the rotation, and at the diaphragm. Works a dream, although he now feels a little bit crunchy, like he didn't enjoy that, but he did it. Yeah, that's pretty relatable. And his head will swivel 360 degrees, of course. It'll look down that much, but it won't look back much because the hair will hit the collar. He's got a bit of side-to-side rock, which is nice for a bit of personality. But yeah, I mean, overall, this guy's going to do just about everything you want him to do. He's got to sort of be posed in some athletic poses, I guess, and he'll be able to do most things. The biggest issue is the way this belt here inhibits this leg and this leg, so you really can't get his leg up, it's a shame. Like, that's a design flaw, in my opinion. This just shouldn't be positioned here, because it just totally, inhibits what you can do with this leg, so... yeah, that's not good, but otherwise, the figure itself is fundamentally pretty good. If you wanted to saw that off, you could get some, broader range of movement, but who would want to do that? So anyway, that is Sportsmaster. Let's do some comparisons. So here is Sportsmaster alongside Midnighter, who effectively is the only figure in my collection that uses this Dark Detective buck. I don't have the Dark Detective figure anymore, but you can see how these two figures share the same basic DNA. You'll see them in the legs, right up to the diaper piece, that torso piece as well. Of course, Midnighter has the jacket, but you can tell that they're sort of born from the same buck, and I think it's quite impressive how you can get two very unique looking figures out of the same basic mold. I do wish that both of them had been given unique lower legs, because these bat ears on the shins, they're just not working for me. But otherwise, you see very, very clever reuse in just about every other way. And of course, here is Black Manta, just to sort of recreate that Young Justice animated episode where Black Manta and Sportsmaster are going at it. They look pretty cool together. And yeah, I think this Sportsmaster looks great. Not a character I had a lot of love for, but now that I'm seeing him here with these other characters, I think you'll have a lot of fun posing this guy in your displays. So Sportsmaster is actually a really surprising figure. At first I thought he was just a cheap cash-in or a cash grab on that old buck from Dark Detective, and while he's certainly just a very basic reuse, I'm really charmed by the figure in the end. I think that base body is actually just a really good body, and it's chunky, and we haven't seen it that many times, we've just a couple of times, so it still feels a little bit fresh. It's got a lot of detail, the articulation is good, except for that belt that inhibits the leg movement. That's a bit of a shame, bit of a design flaw. Accessories are fine. I think maybe an unmasked face could have been really awesome, and better yet, some alternate hands so that you could actually have him holding all of his accessories at the same time, or perhaps a sheath so he could store them up and you could sort of have him packing his whole arsenal. Just little things like that let the figure down, but overall it's really fun, and if you like obscure villains or just really cool looking action figures, or like Casey Jones from TMNT, this figure will do you nicely. So if this has been informative, entertaining or useful, why not give me a like, and if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing, it really helps me out. In the meantime everyone, thanks so much for watching, and happy collecting.